Hey, what's going on, YouTube? It is the Dual Threat Podcast, your daily news source for all things sports. I'm Drew. This is Jacob. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. Helps us out a lot. We've had a little bit of growth going there for the past few days. We appreciate every single one of y'all. Thank y'all so much. Comment any differing opinions as usual. We always encourage the criticism. We get a lot of that, but that's okay. We enjoy every single comment. We like to take every comment and sort of improve on our knowledge and all that good stuff. So make sure to like the video as well. We're going to go straight into our Friday Night Lines video. Y'all know what it is. It is our picks of the week. We also have our upsets. Last week, we didn't do so hot, but let us explain. 3 games came down to 1 second left in the game. We went 1-4 last week, but the week before that, we went 5-0. So stick with us. Just like Kansas, we're due for a win, ladies and gentlemen. So, Jacob, you want to start us off on our first game that we picked this week?
So, our first game that we're going to be taking is we're going to be going with Alabama minus 29.5. A big line, but I don't think any line's too big for Bama at this point. It seems like LSU coming off a 20-7 game against Texas A&M. They really just couldn't do anything on offense. They kind of held A&M's offense decently, but I attribute that more to the weather. I feel like, you look at LSU's recent history. They beat Arkansas, but before that, they lost to Auburn 48-11. I think this one, I can't expect it to be close. LSU has not been good all season for the most part. Their freshman quarterbacks have been struggling, and Bama is literally just steamrolling everybody. As much as I would love to see a rematch from last year, a super high scoring 50-50 game or whatever the final ended up being, I can't imagine that's going to happen. We're taking Bama minus 29.5 in this one.
Yeah, so like I've talked about before, Alabama has had players that were opted out or injured come back for this game. They're really anxious to play this game. And if people are wondering why, it's roll tide that's really what sparks the fire, at least I think, for Alabama this weekend. Nick Saban is back. It's going to be ugly. If you're an LSU fan, I would advise you not to watch it. You talked about the A&M game. They held them on offense or on defense, but really Kellen Mond was not hitting throws, and I can almost guarantee you Mac Jones is going to hit those throws. So this game is going to get pretty ugly. And yeah, we got Alabama minus 29.5 at LSU. Next game we've got, it's a newly scheduled game. We've talked about it a few times in our past few videos. BYU minus 10. And this is going to be a little bit harder to explain just because they don't really have any common opponents. The only one they do, BYU, beat them by a lot more than Coastal Carolina did. And Coastal Carolina, I can't get over that 15-point win over Kansas. Kansas is probably one of the worst Power 5 teams, if not the, and they held them to the lowest score they've scored this year. They scored the most points against Coastal Carolina this year, and they had the closest margin of loss against Coastal Carolina. And Coastal Carolina, if you look at their schedule, they have not played an offense like a BYU, and we've talked about how BYU's defense is even underrated, and they haven't played something like that before. So we've got BYU minus 10. What do you think about this game, Jacob?
Yeah, pretty much the same stuff. Zach Wilson's been looking really good all season. They've been able to run the ball as well. And kind of like we touched on in our last video, it seems like eye test-wise and record-wise, they just have an advantage in every aspect. The defense, like you mentioned, is so significantly underrated for the stats they have. And again, they're 9-0 against a lot of no-name teams necessarily, but their defense has been good in those games. So, yeah, I think BYU minus 10 is a pretty good game that we're going to go with. Next up, This one may come as a little bit of a shocker, but we are going to take Western Carolina plus 49.5. It sounds weird. Western Carolina has put up 31 points in their first two games, getting blown out in both. Neither of them were by 50 plus, and North Carolina has not beat a team by more than 27 all season. And while North Carolina's looked good, I can't imagine them maybe even scoring 50, let alone winning by 50. Again, we know nothing about West Carolina, but what we do know about North Carolina is that they've looked good in a lot of games, but I don't think they're a good enough team to beat anybody by 50 points. So yeah, I think we're going to take Western Carolina, as crazy as it sounds, plus 49.5.
Yeah, and like you said, North Carolina has really scored 50 points like 3 times this year, and all 3 of those times the other team probably had at least 40 points. Really the only one game that kind of stands out to me is UNC versus Duke, but even that game was only a 30-point game. Yeah, so we can't imagine North Carolina beating this team by 50. I mean, that's a line that teams like Alabama and Clemson cover. That is not a line that a team like North Carolina can cover. So we've got West Carolina plus 49.5. Next game is one of the teams that kind of screwed us last week. I'm not going to lie to y'all. They allowed a field goal with, I think it was 3 seconds left in the game, that made it to where they didn't beat the spread. So we're going to go with Florida minus 17.5 against Tennessee. Tennessee these last few weeks has been bad. I believe Jeremy Pruitt said that they were going to have a new quarterback this week. And we've talked about Florida so much on this channel. Their offense is just dominant. They're going to score 50 points on Tennessee, and I don't see a world where Tennessee scores 20 points. So at least against Florida in an improving defense, that their offense is going to be on the field a lot. And I think Florida's defense is good enough to stop that pretty bad Tennessee offense. So yeah, we've got Florida minus 17.5.
For our last game, we're going to go back to the Big 12. I say back, we haven't been there yet. We're going to the Big 12. Baylor taking on Oklahoma. Oklahoma is favored by 22. I can't imagine this one's close at all. Oklahoma State last week, OU beat them by 28. The week before, they beat Kansas by 53. The week before, they beat Tech by 42 or 44. It just seems like Oklahoma is kind of getting into a rhythm, and Spencer Rattler's kind of settling in as that QB1 and has looked pretty good these last few weeks. And they're on a 3-game win streak of winning by more than 22, and I think Baylor might be the worst team they've played in those 3 games, or worse than the 3 teams that they've played. So I can't imagine at home they would win by less than 22. Over under 62.5. It's going to be a pretty high scoring game, but I don't think Baylor's going to keep it close at all in this one.
Yeah, OU's offense has just been so dominant. I mean, you look at last week against Oklahoma State, they just blew them out. And Oklahoma State, not too long ago, if you can remember, they were a top 6 team and they were in the playoff conversation. That is no longer. So yeah, we've got OU minus 22, Boomer Sooner. So now we're going to go to our upsets of the week. This is sort of something we do just for fun, just to track to see who's better at picking the upsets. I believe all 3 of us lost last week, though. That's very unfortunate. One of us was a little bit worse than the other. We're not going to point to anybody, but it was Jake. Yeah, he picked South Carolina. But anyways, for me, this week is a little interesting. I'm going to stay in the SEC, and I'm going to pick Arkansas over Missouri. Missouri has been on a hot streak, but Arkansas, to me, is the better team. You look at Felipe Franks, he's been really good this year as an Arkansas quarterback. I mean, they've had more wins this year than they have in the past 3 years combined, so there's that. And I really think that Arkansas offense has been clicking a little bit, And so they barely lost to LSU last week, and I think LSU has improved a little bit over the season. I think if LSU and Missouri were to play again, that would be a better turnout for the LSU fans, but I got to pick Arkansas in this game. I mean, they should have beat Auburn. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just as simple as that. I've got Arkansas.
So my upset game this week, I was debating between a few games to pick between West Virginia and Iowa State or TCU and Oklahoma State. I like West Virginia. I think I kind of like that game until I looked and saw that they're 5-0 at home and 0-3 on the road, and they're in Iowa for this game. So I'm going to go with TCU. Oklahoma State's only favored by 2. The last 4 weeks, they have not looked good. Beat Tech by 6, lost to OU big, beat Kansas by 2, and then that loss to Texas. They're not the team that anybody expected them to be. They're not. It feels like that great of a team to begin with at this point. I mean, like I said, those games were all close. And even if you look at the beginning of the season, barely beat Tulsa, beat West Virginia by 2 touchdowns, ended up beating Iowa State. That's their only decent win. It feels like the Big 12 is just kind of beating up on everybody this season. So I'm going to take the Horned Frogs at home against Oklahoma State, 2-point underdogs. Max Duggan has looked decent this season, not great, but I just Oklahoma State has not been able to get anything clicking, and so I think they're really going to. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think TCU pulls this one off.
All right, and that leads us to Jake's pick. He just texted me. He's going a little bit off the rails here with his picks. I don't really understand, but he's got a 26-point underdog. He's got Kansas upsetting Texas Tech. This is a pretty interesting pick. The money line is plus 1,200 for Kansas. He says it's just a gut feeling. He doesn't have any stats to prove it. So there you go. He thinks Kansas beats Texas Tech. They get their first win. And that's going to be all for our video today. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Make sure to hit that subscribe button as usual. We're going on the road for 200 subs. And, make sure to tune in every week to get our updated picks and to look at our rankings on the season. Last week we were at 67%. This week it dropped down to, I think it was 59%. So we're still above that 50%. So you're going to make money with us, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure to tune in every week, get our best picks. Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure to like the video and comment any differing opinions you have. And thank you all for tuning in. Have a great day.